Chief of Programs and Communications at the Euro-Mediterranean Human Rights Monitor. He joins us from Lund, Sweden. So, Mohammed, many times the actions in the Human Rights Council are more symbolic, especially if they don't have the support, but designed to send a message. Now that this vote has been taken and successfully seen through, does this go far beyond the message sending?
Well, thank you so much for this important question. I think it's a significant milestone on multiple levels. First, it's unprecedented that the investigation will look into systematic abuses that preceded the war on Gaza and that made this disastrous scourge of violence possible to begin with. It's also unprecedented that the geographical scope will be extended to look into systematic abuses, not just in the occupied territories, but inside Israel against Arab Palestinian communities as well. This could be a path toward joining a growing powerful consensus amongst the world's leading human rights groups that are saying that Israel is committing a crime of apartheid and a crime of persecution against Palestinians between the river and the sea, which is a crime against humanity, the most odious under international law. The finding of this investigation will most certainly boost public solidarity with Palestinians and encourage more and more voices to feel less intimidated, to speak up, educate, and organize. However, what's crucial, what we hope for the most, is that the investigation will prompt international community actions to hold the perpetrators accountable, and it would maybe encourage the International Criminal Court to carry on with its investigation and expedite the procedures that are looking into war crimes, possible war crimes in the occupied territories, rather than letting this monumental moment pass by and allowing this investigation to become merely another report added to a long pile of resolutions and reports that condemned Israeli grave violations but were not followed by concrete action. I think what's disappointing in the vote is to see European members of the Council either abstaining or voting against an investigation, as well as the US expressing strict opposition to the idea of holding Israel accountable or demanding transparency from it. The pretext given by the US is that the investigation would threaten the progress that's been made towards a ceasefire in Gaza. But that rationale here is paradoxical. It's basically that we should not pressure Israel because that would weaken moderate voices and embolden and empower hardliners. At the same time, when it comes to Palestinians, they claim the opposite logic, that we should put maximum pressure on Palestinians, demand they comply with a never-ending list of demands, such as dropping the bid at the ICC, and assuming that this would weaken Palestinian hardliners and empower moderates, the exact opposite. And that is certainly preposterous.
Right, at least where we are right now, certainly the US reaction and some of the European reaction is still to be expected. And you described very well the implications, the broader implications of this vote. But in terms of the realisticness of the investigation, Israel is not going to cooperate at all. So how deep do you think the investigation or any investigation can go?
Well, as you rightly put it, it depends on the cooperation of all concerned parties. Palestinians have been cooperating consistently with the UN, with any fact-finding missions. Israel has unfortunately a long tradition of denying access to UN and independent experts, including the UN Special Rapporteur on the situation in the occupied territories. This promptly brings to mind the maxim that if you have nothing to hide, then if you have nothing to fear. Or if you have nothing to fear, then you have nothing to hide. Of course, Europe and the US share the heaviest burden of responsibility, moral and political, to pressure Israel to ensure that it cooperates with the investigation if they truly want a law-based international order.
Mohammed, thanks so much for your insight.